Ever get that feeling? Like something's kind of off. Not like some huge world-altering thing, but like your inner compass is pointing somewhere new and things you used to love just feel kind of blah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that sort of inner recalibration these days. It's not that the world outside has drastically changed, but maybe it's more like your perception of it, like your internal frequency is shifting.
You got it. And that's exactly what we're going to deep dive into today, the idea of, well, ascending or living in the fifth dimension. But right off the bat, we're not talking about teleporting to some sci-fi planet, right?
Right.
Our sources describe it as a fundamental shift in consciousness, like moving to a higher state of being.
Exactly. We've been looking at some YouTube channels, Your Inner Guide, Wisdom Nuggets, and then there's Sonia Choquette, the author.
Yeah.
And they all kind of have their own angle, but there's this common thread of a really deep internal transformation happening and the signs that come with it.
Yeah. So your inner guide is all about the intense inner work that kind of sets the stage. Wisdom Nuggets dives into how our senses and how we experience reality can change. And Sonia Choquette brings in this really powerful understanding of like direct spiritual guidance that can become available to us.
And what's so interesting is that this isn't some far off mystical thing. It could be happening in your life right now, in those subtle ways.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to unpack here. So if you've been feeling those interchanges, or if things that used to be rock solid for you are now kind of shaky, well, this deep dive is meant to bring you some clarity. By going through all these different perspectives, we're hoping you get a better grasp of what might be going on inside you. And most importantly, you're not alone if this is resonating with you.
Right.
All right, let's get into it. The first area we're looking at are those signs, the indicators of shifting into or living in this fifth dimension. And a big one is this intensification of inner energies and what's often called shadow work.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that this jumping consciousness isn't always like pure bliss right from the start. Your inner guide specifically talks about this need to go through the fourth dimension as a sort of transitional purifier, a bridge to this higher state.
A purifier. Wow, that's a strong image.
Yeah.
It's like as we evolve, we might find those thoughts, those buried emotions rising to the surface. Your inner guide talks about this feeling of pressure building up inside, like those unresolved parts of ourselves can't stay hidden anymore. That doesn't sound like a walk in the park.
Definitely not.
But the big takeaway, and all our sources agree on this, is that this inner chaos, it's not a step back.
Right.
Confronting these shadows, those less comfortable parts of ourselves, it's actually seen as essential.
Essential, yeah.
Your inner guide even says it's like a step towards aligning with your highest timeline. Imagine it like renovating a house.
Yeah.
You got to tear some things down, make a mess to build something better, stronger.
I like that analogy.
So it's like we got to do this deep inner cleaning before we can really step into this higher state of being. And they stress integrating those darker parts of ourselves with like self-love and acceptance.
Self-love and acceptance, that's key.
It's not about getting rid of them, but more about understanding them, right?
Yeah, and they point to practical stuff like meditation and journaling as tools to navigate this shadow work, It gives you a safe space to just observe those emotions, understand them without judging yourself, and that allows for integration instead of just resisting it all.
Okay, so it's about being mindful, not just shoving it all down.
Exactly.
The next sign that keeps popping up is this feeling of confusion and a loss of motivation for things that used to really excite us. I mean, that's something a lot of people feel, whether they're into dimensional theories or not, right?
Right. Absolutely. Your inner guide calls it being ensnared in a fog of confusion, where those things that used to bring joy suddenly feel like, ooh, just another chore. And Wisdom Nuggets talks about this too, this dissolution of the old, the fading away of a way of life that's maybe more rooted in that 3D reality. It's like the foundation of your old reality is getting a bit shaky.
It's that I don't know feeling that just hangs over you.
Yeah.
You're uncertain about the paths, the choices that used to be so clear. But your inner guide actually calls this disorientation a sacred bridge, leading to higher consciousness and spiritual growth. That's a cool way to look at it, Rhian.
Yeah, it is. And what they're suggesting is that this confusion might come from realizing that maybe we haven't been living truthfully. Maybe we've been playing roles that aren't really us. So as those beliefs, those old patterns start to crumble, well, uncertainty is bound to happen, like a snake shedding its skin. There's that vulnerable time before the new one's ready.
You're in this in-between space, right? Between who you were and who you're becoming. It's got to feel unsettling. All right, the next one that our sources talk about is the emergence of psychic ability. This is where things get a bit more mystical, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it does. But your inner guide suggests that as your consciousness shifts towards this 5D frequency, abilities like telepathy, clairvoyance, even precognition, they can start to awaken. It's not like suddenly you're a superhero, but more like your natural intuitive senses are getting fine-tuned.
Telepathy, wow.
Yeah.
Understanding thoughts and emotions without words, that's huge. And a deeper sense of empathy, actually feeling what others feel.
Right, and then there's clairvoyance, clear seeing, Sonia Choquette calls it,
Right.
where these intuitive images or insights just pop into your mind. Your inner guide also points to dreams becoming more important, like gateways to deeper understanding and just a general sharpening of your senses.
So like being more aware of subtle energy shifts.
Yeah, or feeling tingles.
Or those tingling sensations when something resonates with you. They describe intuition as this symphony and the universe is whispering secrets. It's a much more interconnected reality.
And Sonia Choquette really emphasizes those inner senses, that deep, heart-centered knowing. They start to activate, guiding you based on what feels right for you vibrationally.
And they give real-life examples like suddenly sensing a change coming your way or walking into a room and just picking up on the vibe, the emotional atmosphere. It's like your senses are becoming this more refined, they call it a divine code, going beyond just logic.
Moving away from just the linear, rational thinking and towards a more holistic, feeling-based way of experiencing the world.
Interesting. This next category of signs is a bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
Physical symptoms.
Yeah.
Turns out this spiritual expansion can actually affect our bodies.
Yeah, both your inner guide and wisdom nuggets talk about this. They say that as your consciousness, your energy field expands, your physical body, which is denser, has to adjust to these higher vibes, like updating the software on your computer. There can be glitches during the installation.
Sleepless nights, flu-like symptoms, but no actual flu. Constant fatigue, headaches out of nowhere, even memory lapses, and just general aches and pains. It sounds like, being run down.
It does, yeah. And it's super important to listen to your body and not just jump to conclusions thinking it's all dimensional shift. But these sources say it can be part of this energetic adjustment. Your inner guide even talks about DNA changes to handle all this higher light energy.
More light. That's an interesting way to put it.
It is.
And they really emphasize taking it easy during these times, resting, finding some solitude.
Absolutely. And connecting with nature.
Yeah, they're big on that. Getting out in nature.
Yeah.
Barefoot grounding, spending time near water, walking in the woods as ways to help your body integrate these new frequencies and reconnect with this sense of oneness. Wisdom Nuggets talks about this pull towards nature as a big sign too. Nature's like this grounding force.
Like a cosmic tuning fork.
Yeah, helping us realign our internal frequency. Okay, let's move on to something a little more upbeat, I guess. The appearance of what they call amazing synchronicities in our lives.
This one comes up a lot in all our sources, and it's exciting.
It is.
Your inner guide describes the universe talking to you through signs and divine whispers. You start seeing repeating numbers, experiencing those crazy coincidences more often. Wisdom Nuggets even talks about, absurdly meaningful coincidence.
It's like the universe is leaving you clues to follow, right?
Yeah.
Your inner guide calls them threads of divine alignment. And they say they're not just random. They're personalized guidance, showing you you're on the right track.
Numbers become symbolic, too, representing transformation. They frame these synchronicities as your dream reality starting to show up, reassuring you that you're in flow.
It's kind of comforting to think those weird coincidences have a deeper meaning. But your inner guide also acknowledges that this whole transition can be overwhelming, and they remind you spiritual support's there if you ask for it.
That's key, being open to that support, even if it's subtle.
The next sign we're looking at is this feeling of disconnecting from old relationships, social circles. It sounds kind of tough.
It can be emotional. Your inner guide describes it as no longer vibing with people you were once close to, even feeling like a stranger among them. Wisdom Nuggets touches on this too, this dissolution of the old, and that can include relationships that have just run their course.
They explain it as your own energy changing, not that anything's wrong with those other people. Your inner guide uses this image of a caterpillar in its cocoon, going through metamorphosis and needs that isolation.
Right.
They talk about feeling homesick, even like an imposter on Earth, like you don't fit into the old ways anymore.
That sense of not belonging.
Yeah. And what's important is that everyone's journey is different. Not everyone goes through this at the same time. They say it's totally fine, even though it might hurt, to let go of those connections that don't feel right anymore, to follow your heart. It's a very personal journey.
Honoring your own energy, that's what matters.
The next sign is a bit of a relief. Surrender and this growing sense of inner peace.
Yeah, it's described as reaching this point where you stop fighting the flow, Your inner guide calls it a divine invitation to surrender to something bigger than your ego.
It's realizing that existence goes way beyond time and space and that the idea of a set path just dissolves, making way for the mystery of the unknown, as they put it. Sounds kind of scary and freeing at the same time.
It is both. The focus is on trust, letting go, and having faith that the universe has got your back. Knowing deep down you're exactly where you need to be with unique gifts to share. Wisdom Nuggets talks about surrendering that need to control everything outside and holding on to your inner vision.
So trusting in a bigger picture rather than trying to micromanage everything.
Exactly.
There are a few more signs, shorter ones, that our sources meant. Heightened sensitivity.
Yeah, your inner guide talks about being much more sensitive to sounds, smells, even glances, and picking up on thoughts and emotions around you, like noticing things you wouldn't have before.
Changes in dreams.
Dreams get more vivid, symbolic, maybe even prophetic. You might wake up feeling like you learned something, received guidance.
Interesting. And lastly, this feeling of inner silence and clarity, even when everything's chaotic outside.
Right. Those moments of deep stillness and insight that can just pop up. Even when the world feels crazy, you suddenly know that everything's unfolding as it should. Even those doubts, the exhaustion, the confusion, they can be seen as the old consciousness fading away.
Wow. So it really is a huge transformation with all sorts of experiences, some easy, some not, but all pointing to this shift in consciousness. Now, Sonia Choquette brings in this really unique element, direct guidance from the spirit realm.
Yeah, for Sonia, a hallmark of 5D living is that direct, very real sense of your spirit as an infinite divine being, not bound by that limited victim ego anymore.
So not feeling like a victim of circumstance, but feeling empowered, connected to something bigger.
Exactly. And this brings an awareness of a whole spiritual support system, spirit guides, angels, light beings. She calls it a populated realm of support.
She talks about feeling more confident, reassured, secure, and more creative too. And less fear, less isolation, less reactive, less pain, less stuck. Sounds pretty amazing, right?
It does, yeah. And she emphasizes that this guidance isn't like some booming voice from the heavens. It's often more subtle. Those random connections, overhearing a conversation, finding the right information at the perfect time.
And she points out that our logical minds tend to dismiss this as coincident because it doesn't fit how we normally think information works. So being aware and open to those subtle signs is important.
She outlines 4 main ways this guidance comes through. Clairvoyance, that clear seeing. Clairaudience, hearing inner guidance, not outer sound. Clairsentience, the feeling of energy, presence, emotions. That deep inner knowing, your gut feeling.
That red light, green light, yellow light thing for gut feelings, that's so easy to understand.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
She also talks about what she calls earth angel guidance. Those physical signs, like a book falling off a shelf or overhearing a specific comment that's meant for you. And then the guidance we get through our own physical and subtle senses.
Right. Paying attention to those inner cues.
And she tells these great stories, like her mom just knowing her son was alive even when everyone said he wasn't, and her daughter getting this clear guidance to move to Paris during a tough time. It really brings this whole idea of inner guidance to life.
What's interesting is that this guidance rarely gives you the whole map, you know?
Right.
It's more like it shows you the next step. You got to trust and act on those little bits of information you get.
And she says you don't have to be perfectly happy or anything to be receptive to this guidance. You just got to be available, is what she said. She suggests acknowledging it when you sense it, saying it out loud, or taking a walk in nature to open yourself up.
And oracle cards, too, as a tool to connect with this intuitive guidance.
So it's about listening, being open to receiving information in ways that go beyond our 5 senses. What happens if we ignore these signs, these shifts happening inside us? The last part of our deep dive is about resisting this call and what that can lead to.
The YouTube channel Transcend talks about this silent calling, those feelings of emptiness, restlessness, exhaustion that we might try to ignore. They say these aren't signs of weakness, but powerful invitations to reach a new level of consciousness.
They say this inner transition, it doesn't always start with peace and calm, but sometimes with a collapse of those old structures in our lives. And the changes are happening energetically, not just logically, which can make you feel out of sync with the world.
Right.
And Transcend says that if you keep ignoring that soul calling, it can lead to your body and life circumstances screaming for your attention. You might feel stuck or have more emotional outbursts. It's like the universe starts with a gentle nudge, and if you don't listen, those nudges get stronger.
It's like it's trying to get your attention.
Spiritual resistance is often sneaky. It comes disguised as logical reasons to cling to old ways. Thoughts like, this is just a phase, or I can't change right now. It's like rearranging the furniture when you should really be moving to a new house.
Yeah, I like that.
Holding on to relationships or routines that drain you, getting lost in distractions to avoid looking inward, even getting stuck in spiritual perfectionism, thinking you need to be perfect before you can change. Those are all forms of resistance. The mind wants control. The soul wants mystery.
And the mind often wins.
What happens if you keep delaying this inner call? Transcend says life gets more intense, challenges repeat, and relationships drift apart. Like the universe keeps giving you the same lesson until you get it.
Thanks.
They say surrender is the key, stopping that inner fight and learning to listen to that quiet voice inside. It's not giving up, it's letting go of needing to control everything. They call surrender a spiritual technology that lets life reveal its wisdom.
A technology, that's interesting.
Moving from reacting all the time to being aligned, choosing your thoughts, letting your emotions flow without drowning in them, trusting there's a purpose, even when things seem messy.
It's about trusting the process.
And as you surrender, this new higher frequency reality becomes your home base. You start co-creating your life with intention, knowing that every thought, feeling, action has an energy.
Everything's in.
Yeah. They suggest simple things like being silent on purpose, writing spontaneously to tap into your wisdom, spending time in nature, and really paying attention to your emotions as ways to realign your energy. As you become more stable, you might even notice people are drawn to you, just your presence.
That's a good sign.
Living this new reality is about holding on to that 5D vibe, even while you're in this 3D world. You become a bridge, a reminder of peace. Your inner alignment can change things around you without even saying a word.
The power of just being.
And this awakening isn't just you, it's part of a bigger shift happening on Earth. So your job is to hold on to your truth. This fifth dimension, it's an inner awakening, coming home to your true self. And the choices you make every day, those are the things that create this new Earth.
It comes back to that inner shift, recognizing the call, seeing the signs, being open to guidance, and letting go.
You got it. So wrapping up our deep dive, we explored the fifth dimension as a state of being, not a place. We looked at all sorts of signs that you might be shifting to or already living in this higher frequency, the inner work, the confusion, those intuitive sparks, those synchronicities, that spiritual guidance that shows up, and how important it is to listen to those nudges. And we talked about how we might resist this change and the power of just surrendering and letting it unfold.
It's a very personal journey, and as we said at the start, this might resonate with everyone differently at different times.
So here's something to think about. Have you noticed any of these signs in your own life? And if you have, what if you're already more aligned with this higher frequency than you think?
Maybe, over the next few days or weeks, pay attention to what's going on inside. Those intuitive feelings, those coincidences, those moments of clarity. And if you feel drawn to it, try those practices we talked about, like being silent, journaling, connecting with nature.
This journey, it's about embracing who you truly are, finding a deeper meaning in everything. It's about realizing you're part of something much bigger, much more amazing than you can imagine right now.
It's about expanding your awareness and seeing the world in a new way.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing journey, and we're all on it together.
We are.
Keep exploring.
Keep listening.
And keep trusting that inner voice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.
See ya.